This is Factual America. I'm your host, Matthew Sherwood. Each week I watch a hit documentary and then talk with the filmmakers and their subjects.
On the day of the final scene, Michelle and I were supposed to meet the unlicensed private investigator in Walnut Creek.
I was in my production office waiting to hear back from my producers. 10 o'clock, nothing. 11 o'clock, nothing. Noon, nothing.
In 2010, the next new hit reality TV series is in production. An investigation agency of soccer moms, a modern bunch of Charlie's Angels, is solving crimes and catching cheating husbands. What could go wrong? But suddenly the moms' investigations keep falling apart and targets are tipped off. Is someone on the inside trying to sabotage the show? And what about these mysterious emails accusing the agency's boss of running an illegal drug operation on the side with the help of a corrupt cop? The production crew is gobsmacked, and the network threatens to pull the plug. Director Phil Bowman joins us to discuss the greatest reality TV show that never was. Stay tuned. Phil Bowman, welcome to Factual America. How are things with you?
Very good. It's very hot here in London. I listened to my friend Shine's podcast with you a few weeks ago, and I think she was saying it was very grey and rainy. The weather has changed here. It is now unbearably hot today.
Yeah, I'm a UK based. I'm up north, but it's hot here as well. So certainly by British standards, and it's having a very British conversation to begin this podcast to talk about the weather. But let's remind our listeners and viewers we're talking about Trainwreck PI Moms. It's the latest in the Trainwreck series. By the time you will get to either watch or view this episode of Factual America, it will have been streaming since July 22nd. So Phil, again, congratulations. Great to have you on. Well, if you've listened to those other podcasts, you know I'm not too original with how we start things here. I'll ask you the same question, except about a different film. What is PI Moms all about? Maybe you can give us a bit of a synopsis.
Yeah, sure. So in 2010, there was a private investigator called Chris Butler working in the Bay Area, and he had, this private investigation agency, and he kind of happened on this sort of niche thing that made his business a little bit different and drew more interest to it, and that was having, for want of a better word, soccer mums working for him. So, by day, these women would be, taking care of their lives and running their households and, by their own admission, dropping off the kids, and then by night or in the evening, they would be on cases, sort of busting insurance frauds and scoping out cheating couples and those cracking crimes basically. And I think Chris kind of saw there was an opportunity to grow it into something, and he generated quite a bit of press, and they made it on the Dr. Phil show in People magazine, and this caught the attention of the Lifetime network, who I think were perhaps looking for the next big hit on reality TV. And they basically reached out and with a guy called Lucas Platt, executive producing, and said, let's make this. And I guess our film is the story of the greatest reality TV show that never got to air.
Which may explain why so we've had a few of the Trainwreck episodes on, as you've noted. Most of these stories are even I had heard of these stories or remember them from the time. I was less familiar with this one. And to the point, I had wondered, did this ever see the light of day, this reality TV show that was supposed to be made? So maybe it's an interesting one that because it's it made, as you said, it made a bit of a splash. They were on Dr. Phil and People magazine and places like that. But they, we'll get to this in a moment. But the next time they make a splash is maybe for all the wrong reasons. But these PI moms, so why did Chris? I mean, you said he found a niche. Why was he hiring them? They all had, I gather, they all had legit backgrounds in law enforcement. I mean, they did come from a investigative background at least the women you have on in the doc.
Yeah, 100%. One of them had like a legal background, and another one had worked in the sheriff's office. So they had, backgrounds in the crime and law enforcement world, and were super smart and switched on. And I think it's often the case that, when women start families, and I think this speaks to a lot of the women in my life as well, like they're presented with a kind of crossroads, maybe that it's not easy to carry on the thing they were doing, and they want to be able to do something that they feel passionate about. And I think Chris really hit on that as well. And he realized that they had this, as Liam Neeson put it, like a special set of skills, that they were much more empathetic to some of the clients. And also they had this invisibility about them, that they could be scoping someone out and no one took much notice of them. And so they were able to navigate through situations. And I think as mums, they just had like lots of good experience of dealing with tricky people. And obviously with their legal background as well, they were super overqualified for this kind of work as well.
Well, yeah, fair enough point. And so, as you say, it's certainly given the time period. I mean, this is the heyday of reality TV, and it comes calling. It seems like it's perfectly set up for this, right? They garner media attention, but then things start to unravel a bit, and they're in production. But I mean, I guess maybe before we get there, it's not just them. So he hires these women who are legit, well, as you say, overqualified as PIs. But there's other people around in the business, right? There are people who are like models, former TV actors. There are all kinds of. It's a bit of an interesting environment that Chris has there, and I guess the point I'm getting at is, I mean, maybe this is cutting to the chase too quickly in terms of what did and didn't happen, and people should go watch the episode first if they don't want to have any spoiler alerts. What we find out about Chris, do you think he legitimately was? Maybe this is really a question for later, but did he really legitimately want a active PI firm? How much was this for show, and how much of it was to maybe hide some other activities of his that we will talk about later?
Lucas was just pacing back and forth, and I was kind of just looking around going, what is going on?
We were like, oh no, he's not going to show up. And so the production crew asked Michelle to call him one more time.
I mean, I can't speak for Chris personally, but I would definitely say that all the enthusiasm and passion that you see like in the first 10 minutes surrounding the build-up of the agency, for me, feels completely legitimate. And
right,
whether it was a successful business that generated an income or a successful reality TV show, both of those things would like bode really well for Chris. I think.
Right. We do know, so assuming everyone's watched the episode, we do know that things do begin to unravel with what seems to be, as you say, it's all set up to be an extreme. I mean, is it what's the showrunner's name again? Luke.
Yeah, Lucas Platt. Yeah, he says at
Lucas
one point
Platt.
It's all off and running at the races, isn't it? And he says after he'd had quite a. He'd had trickier productions previously, for sure, in it, that he felt, and he thought, yeah, great characters and great cast, and this would be the easiest job he had.
Yeah.
And that, I think we know the answer.
Well, yeah. So he, I mean, it seems, and as it turned out, it was too good to be true, but it does seem to be, he recognizes that this is going to be a huge hit. It's, it's straight out of like real life Charlie's Angels, right? It's like, you can already see, if you think about everything that was a hit at the time, this could easily match most of those and be extremely successful. So Chris Butler, the guy who started this PI firm, he's got a, like you said, we don't know how successful really the firm's being, but he's set himself up well. He's got this arrangement to do this reality TV show, and all things should go well. But then it does start to unravel. And what are the some of the first alarm bells that start ringing for Lucas, and then also obviously the Lifetime and then the network, who's thinking of, they must be wondering, wait a minute, what's really going on here? They're having the update calls, and some strange things are starting to happen.
Yeah, I think it starts quite slowly. Once the show's up and running, there is a journalist called Pete Crooks who's contacted by some press people related to the Chris Butler agency. And they reach out saying, would you like to take part in the case and come along and ride along with us and basically, get a sense of what we do and maybe write an article on it. And so he goes, and he has a fantastic, exciting day out. And it's like, he's sort of living his fantasy of being like a private detective himself for the day. And he really enjoys the mum's company and thinks they're great, have great personality. And he really sees, like, he gets the hook. He understands why this is going to be turned into a reality TV show. And when he gets back to write up the article, he gets an email from an anonymous source, Ronald Rutherford, and basically saying that everything you just witnessed was staged, and so is the TV show that they're making at the time. And he alerts Lucas to that, and that's the first inkling, I think, that Lucas has that there might be a problem in the background.
I mean, because this gets this whole point about what this is also showing is all about what is reality TV and what is reality, right? There's always, there's always a bit of scripting going on, right? In terms of, or at least the way we now see things versus what things are like in 2010. I think everyone assumes nowadays that all of reality TV is scripted. I'm not saying that's the case in this situation. As you show, the PIs were legitimately working on cases, but what they didn't know was that there were other things going on in the background. Is that fair enough to say?
I think that's fair enough to say. I think the film definitely touches on that idea that lots of people, I think it's said several times by several different people, like there's often the question of like, how real is reality TV? And I guess this film explores that to an extent through that, and that's kind of left up to the viewers to decide. But I think the main point of the ride along was probably that there was someone out there that didn't want this to be happening and didn't want the show to be taking place. I think that's seems to be the main thrust of what was put in that email to Pete Crooks.
Yes, and so that also gets down to who is this person who doesn't want this project to be successful, and there is someone at the heart of all this who's the very reason why some of the cases do fall apart. So is this guy named Carl Marino?
Yeah, Carl was he was the head of operations at the Butler and Associates agency, and I think you were hinting at his presence earlier. And he was like a male model and part-time actor that also had some law enforcement experience. Okay. And I think Chris saw him as like a valuable asset with the company, that often they had to play roles within the cases and stuff, and that his acting ability might come to use in some of the cases.
And finally, he actually answered and told Michelle, I'm not coming. I've been tipped off. My initial thought was, who the just completely sabotaged everything?
He's Ronald Rutherford, right? As we find out, he's the fellow that sends the emails to say that things are staged. But then he's also he's also tipping. They have a legit case, right, that they're actually pursuing, and he tips off the target, right, and
Yeah.
then they have another case where, I mean, this is just, so this is what I couldn't get my head around. So there's this actual legit missing persons case, right? And they're on it. They're thinking this would be a great way because they've had this other case fall apart, and then he actually solves it before they can get in on this, which is just, I mean, it's a bit crazy. I mean, this is all these stories that you show, and very well, is like just all this craziness that's going on. I mean, it must have been the craziest reality TV production ever, or at least one of the craziest to ever try to put on.
Well, I mean, it's really fun, like hearing you like recount the stories from it, because I'm like, oh wow, he gets it. It obviously makes sense because it is so crazy what's going on. That I think a lot of the time you're sort of questioning, like, is that what really happened, and like, why did he do this, and trying to understand motivations and like what led to what. And I think you have to like lean into the craziness of this story. Like, it doesn't make sense to everyone at all times, and there's so many twists and turns, and working out why people are doing what they're doing. You're like, that seems like half the fun of the episode. But yeah, I would agree. Like, making TV can be a crazy thing, but I've certainly never experienced anything like this in my days of making film and TV.
Yeah. And I think that's it. I think what I really liked was that you got all the people involved besides Lucas Platts, but you've got all the other different like line directors and other people from the production on who talk about, because one of them even had to. The cases were few and far between, as it turned out. So she was actually one of her jobs was actually to find cases for them to work on.
Yeah, so that would be Chris Flitter was a story producer, and I think that maybe Lucas and the rest of the team feel that there'd been a slight over promising of like the volume of cases that they had, and TV certainly you needed a certain amount of content basically, and she was brought in to sort of drive up business, as
right.
she puts it, for Chris to find cases that they could work on as the business that then they could film for the show. And yeah, that's that Chris Flitter and Joanna Pania and Teresa Moore King were our valuable team, and yeah, and it's showcasing like how many people it does take. It takes like an army to make all of this content.
Right. I think that actually gives us a good point to give our listeners and viewers an early break. So we'll be right back with Phil Bowman, the director of Trainwreck, PI Moms, streaming on Netflix. And since you made it this far, why not subscribe or follow us? Please turn on your notifications while you're at it and make sure you never miss one of our episodes.
Factual America is brought to you by Alamo Pictures, a London-based production company specializing in feature documentaries, factual television, and shorts about the U.S. Benefiting from an outsider's keen eye and years of stateside experience, Alamo's filmmakers explore topical, uniquely American stories from a sympathetic European perspective. The result is engaging cinema and television that defies stereotypes and helps audiences truly understand what makes America tick. Check out Alamo's website at alamopictures.co.uk to be the first to hear about new productions, festivals showing Alamo's films, and to connect with the team. Now back to Factual America.
Welcome back to Factual America. I'm here with Phil Bowman, the director of Trainwreck, PI Moms, streaming on Netflix since July 22nd. Phil, we're talking about this crazy story that is, or the PI Moms that, so maybe we'd kind of tie up at the end here. So ultimately, a lot of things are going wrong. We've got a lot of different, cases of probably jealousy and ambition by people who drive them to do things that don't necessarily make sense in terms of derailing this project. But ultimately, what it comes down to is that if we take it back to Chris Butler is that in some way or fashion, this is a bit of a front, isn't it? Or is it a front, or is he just, it's a side gig he's got along with something else that he's doing, which is selling drugs confiscated by the police, which is mad. So you actually have someone on a sting operation, I think, who's listening to audio. You know, they got someone mic'd up with a bug or whatever, and they're talking about the TV show.
Well, I think that there's the answer then. If you were wondering whether Chris really did care about the TV show, that yes, when Robert Blem, our special agent, is listening in on a wiretap, once he hears information about potential drug deals going down, which is obviously of significant interest to him, he then hears that the conversation veers into this what seemingly more urgent conversation about Carl's conduct with the television show, and that Chris is pleading with him please don't interfere with any more of the cases. They're going to pull the plug, and so seemingly Chris does care about the outcome of the TV show.
So then that begs the question: why is? I mean, you can't. We don't know. We don't have. We don't have Chris here to answer, but. Why carry on with all? I mean, there's that, but why is he even bothering with all this 2-bit kind of low level? Not maybe that low level, but this sort of police corruption, drug dealing. I mean, it certainly must pale in comparison in terms of the money he's going to make versus what he's going to make from the reality TV show.
It's a really great question, but it's a really difficult one. I think what it highlights is that for the audience, there's a few motivations of some of our characters in the story that you really need to wrestle with and make up your own minds, really, why you think they did what they did, for what they were hoping to get out of all this.
Okay. So how did you become involved with this project?
I had made quite a few films. Firstly, I'd edited quite a lot of stuff for Raw over the years, and then my last 2 films before this one were both with Raw. So I was in and around, and I was a big fan of Trainwreck 99, the Woodstock Festival film, and was basically invited in, and they heard that they were looking to turn it into an anthology with shorter stories that sort of broke out of what Woodstock was, which was just about a music festival. And had all these different stories, and was just invited into, have a look and have a conversation about the stories, and most of them that made it, into the final anthology were the ones there. And I just thought, well, what a brilliant but quite disparate group of stories that they all seemed really fun in their own way and represented their own train wreck, their own version of a train wreck. And immediately I think I was probably drawn to the PI Mum story.
And were you familiar with the story beforehand?
I wasn't. It had been on This American Life, and I'm a keen listener of that podcast. But I hadn't listened to that particular episode. But no, I hadn't heard of the story before. But immediately I was just drawn to it because I was slightly bamboozled by it, and I thought there's so much going on here. I also loved the sort of it was an opportunity to make a TV show about a TV show, which I don't think comes along very often. And as Lucas put it to me in one of the interviews, it didn't make the cut, but he was like, there's not a lot of documentaries out there that, show the inside workings of the sausage factory and how the sausage is made. And in this particular instance, as he put it, the sausage factory exploding. And so it's... the opportunity to do that was really, really fun. And I think just the world of the private eyes and the investigations and the sort of the spying, and what's interesting about this story, and I thought about it having watched all the other train wrecks recently, was all the other events in the train wreck, you can literally see happening in front of your eyes. Poop Cruise, you can see the human waste rising up from the toilet and stuff. American Apparel, you can see the behavior in the shop fronts and going on. And Project X, you walk down that street in Holland that night, you see that. And I realized with PI Mums, like all the things that made it a train wreck happen off screen for the most part. And it's all
Right.
like our contributors playing catch up and trying to figure out what is going on. And not everyone has all the pieces of the puzzle. I think the audience are the ones that really have the pieces of the puzzle. And yeah, I just thought that made it a bit fun and different.
You get back the main PI moms who were going to feature in the show, the reality show. You get them all back on. And what did you make of them in terms of, you know, their stories and kind of what they're up to now?
Well, I think they're all absolutely brilliant, and I loved getting to know them on the project. I just really believed in what they were trying to do in the first place, that they wanted to be on the original PI Mums Lifetime show in order to, well, sort of do their job, but like show that that was a job that, you know, working mums like themselves could do. It was like this empowering thing, you know, that they could do a job that had a lot of gravitas to it and do something really interesting, and they wanted to showcase that, and also they wanted to open up about their lives, I think. And I'll certainly leave this for the telling in the film itself, but
Right,
they had
right.
personal things about their own lives that they wanted to share. And, you know, that's so true of so many TV and documentary contributors, that there's something that they want to get across the world to create like empathy and have that feeling like, oh, look, that person's like me. So they had stories that they wanted to share that were deeply personal, and they did open up about those. And of course, because the show collapsed, they never got the opportunity to share those stories. So obviously this film gave them the opportunity to do that again. And I think they're incredibly like brave, and I'm grateful that they took the time to do it a second time with us.
Yeah. I mean, it struck me that it's really a shame they didn't, you know, this didn't become a reality TV show, because it was going to be very different, wasn't it? I mean, they were going to be dealing with some, you know, it was going to be entertaining. Obviously, it has to be, but they're going to be dealing with some heavy subjects as well that you don't often get told this way so sympathetically.
I completely, 100%. It's the type of thing I would have like scrolled over and watched an episode of if it was on in the evening, because I think it brought together two worlds with, you know, it's the sort of Venn diagram of audiences. There's maybe the true crime or police procedural, the people that watch Cops, that like seeing procedure and cases being put together and the bad guy getting a slap on the wrist. But then there's this superhuman element where, because, you know, Lucas felt the lives of the mums were so rich that there was a lot to dig in with, and there was a lot of like human interest there you don't necessarily get with those police procedurals. So it was this sort of mashing together of those sort of law enforcement and personal human drama worlds.
Yeah. And then, so they've kind of, they haven't done any more. I mean, I think they may have done some TV interviews and stuff at the time, but they didn't do any more, or as far as I'm aware, do any more television, did they? They've kind of gotten on with their lives and moved on into other things. Is that right?
Correct. I think for quite a few of the contributors, it was quite a trying experience, and that, you know, even had the opportunity presented itself to start filming more episodes a few months later, a few years later. I think a few of our the PI mums and the filmmakers were ready to move on.
Yeah. So what about these the filmmakers, the TV producers, and Lucas Platts? And I mean, this has the potential to ruin their careers. Did it? Did they have to? Did they bounce back? What happened? Because, you know, obviously they had this wasn't the best thing to have on your CV.
Oh, it's really interesting you touched on that, because while we were this was last year, out in the Bay Area in California making this, our sound recordist, a guy called Sage, was one day he had like a specific bit of kit he either had or didn't have, and he needed to collect from like some contact. So he drove out after our shoot one day, and then he went to pick up off this guy, and he's like, "Oh, hey Sage, how's it going? What are you working on at the moment?" "Oh, I'm doing a film for Raw about this PI Mum show that like never went to be." And he's like, "I worked on that show. I was the sound recordist on that show."
Wow.
And we were like, "That is crazy." And we're like, I think my first thought was like, "Is he free tomorrow and does he want to sit in the chair?"
Right.
It didn't come to pass. But I think he was like, see, you know, for lots of people, it was like sort of an exciting, it's a story to tell down the pub on their resume. Obviously, it was a much bigger deal to Lucas, but, you know, I think everyone in TV can see it for what it was. There was a lot of people that put their heart and soul into this project, a lot of talented people that put their heart and soul into it. And this show did ultimately fail, but not for lack of effort, talent, or trying.
And then there's one individual, back to this guy, and I'm not trying to make him the main subject. It's in fact, or if he is one, for maybe, well, we can leave it to people to judge. But the person was able to parlay a career, a successful career, is Carl Marino, isn't it? I mean, he's Lieutenant Joe Kenda on this Homicide Hunter show that's had hundreds of episodes and things like that. He's if he's anything, he's certainly adaptable. I guess would be the way to put it. But it is an interesting. Did you reach out to him? Did you try to get him on?
Yeah, we you know, it's often the way with Raw and how we like to tell stories. We want to reach out and speak to everyone that's involved in the story. And there was a long development period on this where everyone was contacted in some way and everyone was given the opportunity to speak to us, and that was their decision. And I don't think Carl wanted to take part, and that's fair enough. But yes, he went on to have some success with that show on the Discovery Network.
It is a crazy story. It's well told, and I do recommend that people give it a viewing. It's like you said, it's kind of a it's of a piece. It's of this which I really big fan of, this new Trainwreck, as you say, anthology. And we did have the original Trainwreck on years ago, about Woodstock '99. Wasn't the original title, but that's a story for another time. I'm aware of the original title of that. We recorded that episode with the original Trainwreck people before the name was changed. Yeah. So if you watch our episode, it is it's well, just be upfront with everyone. It's you can have a bit of a drinking game and get pretty drunk, I think, for the number of times someone says clusterfuck in the in that episode that we put out a few years ago. So, but yeah, I think we're coming to the end of our time together, Phil. So I just wanted to ask you, what's next for you? Another project with Raw, or you've got something else going on?
Yeah, I can't escape Raw. I'm currently working on a new project with them for a big streamer that I guess will be announced at some point and probably be out, I don't know, late next year or something. But it's tonally a bit different to PI Mums.
Okay. All right. Well, we look forward to that and those announcements, and would love to have you on again, Phil, if you're up for it. So big thanks to Phil Bowman, the director of Trainwreck, PI Moms, streaming on Netflix since July 22nd. Do check it out. Please like the episode and follow us wherever you listen to podcasts, or subscribe to our YouTube channel. And remember to ring the bell to be notified of future episodes. So thanks again, Phil. Great to have you on. Much appreciated, and best of luck with everything.
Cheers. We're out now. Thank you very, very much, Matthew.
Thanks for listening to Factual America. Please subscribe and like us, and share us with friends and family. Find us on YouTube, social media, and factualamerica.com. This is Matthew Sherwood, signing off.